Okay, so today we're going to dive into a major human rights report that looks at the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. We're going to walk through its main findings, the evidence it's all based on, and the conclusions it comes to, sticking right to what's in the source material.
Right off the bat, the report grounds you in the human reality of the situation. This is a direct quote from someone they interviewed, and you can feel it just sets this incredibly heavy, serious tone for everything we're about to look at.
So, just to be clear, the source for this whole explainer is a report that is built from the ground up on direct human testimony. The entire goal here is to document what's been happening in the region through the eyes of people who've actually lived it. So you might be asking, what's this all based on? Well, the report's foundation is pretty solid. We're talking about over 70 hours of detailed interviews with 53 different people. This includes former camp detainees, their relatives, people who are now living in a dozen different countries. And this groundwork is absolutely crucial because it's the basis for all the findings that we're going to talk about.
All right, let's get into the system of control that the report details. It describes this reality that goes way, way beyond just the camps. It paints a picture of this comprehensive effort to completely reshape the culture and daily life of the Uyghur people.
The report identifies this one core policy that it says is driving the whole system: sinicization. And it defines it as this deliberate process aimed at, well, erasing distinct ethnic and religious identities, basically with the goal of assimilating people into the mainstream Han Chinese culture.
And this is where that big, abstract policy idea becomes really, really concrete. According to witness accounts in the report, we're talking about things like banning the Uyghur language in schools, forbidding common Islamic names, and even prohibiting traditional greetings. These aren't just rules, they're direct interventions into the most basic parts of a person's life and identity.
So from there, the report really drills down into the detention system itself. And what it uncovers is not just one type of camp, but this whole complex network of 5 different kinds of facilities, each one designed for a very specific purpose.
And this table really lays out the complexity of that system. You got everything from temporary interrogation centers to concentration camps for re-education to forced labor facilities, and even camps specifically for the children of people who've been detained. The report argues this isn't random at all. It's a highly organized, multi-layered structure.
But the control, it doesn't just stop at the camp walls, not by a long shot. The report describes a society under total surveillance. Witnesses talk about facial recognition cameras being everywhere, checkpoints on pretty much every corner, and even a policy of a police officer for every family. It's just an environment of constant, inescapable monitoring.
Okay, so how are these policies actually justified officially? Well, the report documents the Chinese government's own reasoning. It's all part of a campaign against what it calls the 3 evil powers.
And what the report highlights is this interesting pattern of timing, how these policy escalations seem to line up with major global events. So after 9/11, it started linking Uyghur groups to global terror. After the Urumqi riots in 2009, it framed those events as its own September 11th. Then, as the world was focused on the rise of ISIS, it launched the first camp trials, before massively expanding them under a new counterterrorism law.
But here's what the report argues is the absolutely crucial point: the incredible gap it finds between those official labels and the actual activities people were being punished for. So under the banner of fighting religious extremism, witnesses said they were detained for things like owning a Quran or fasting. Under ethnic separatism, it was for things as simple as using the Uyghur language.
So the report then pushes past that official narrative to look at what it sees as the underlying strategic motives. It basically asks a key question. If this isn't just about counterterrorism, what else could possibly be driving these policies?
And that really is the central question the report wants us to think about. If the crimes being punished are just everyday cultural and religious practices, then what's the real strategic goal here?
And the report points to an answer that has a lot to do with economics and geography: the Belt and Road Initiative. We're talking about China's huge global infrastructure project, and the Xinjiang region happens to be its critical starting point.
I mean, think about it. The region is the geographic gateway for half of the entire project's land corridors. So the report argues that the ultimate goal here is to secure this vital economic hub, making sure it's stable, and, to use its own words, fully Chinese. The timing is also pointed out as significant. The project launches in 2013, and the first camp trials kick off just 1 year later.
And this brings us to the final section of the report, which really circles right back to where we started: the staggering human cost of this entire system. It details the conditions inside the camps directly from the testimony of witnesses.
A second quote from a victim it brings you right back to the raw,
physical reality of these testimonies. This is how one former detainee described their own body after what they endured. It's incredibly powerful.
Their report even pieces together what a typical day was like, based on all these different testimonies. It would start at 6 a.m. with hours and hours of political education, followed by really meager food rations. Detainees describe being pulled out for random interrogations, sometimes involving torture, and then having to sleep in shifts because the cells were so severely overcrowded.
And if you need just one number to grasp the sheer scale and speed of this whole operation, the report cites satellite data. It shows that the total physical area of these camps grew by 465% in just 2 years. That is a truly staggering rate of expansion.
So, in the end, the report doesn't really give you a final, definitive answer. Instead, it leaves us with this incredibly powerful and, frankly, pretty unsettling question. It challenges all of us to weigh the evidence for ourselves. Is this a campaign against terror, or is it a campaign against an entire identity?